Today, we're jumping into a really fascinating and honestly a pretty radical idea about learning. It's called the pedagogy of emanation. So let's kick things off with a question that, it gets right to the heart of this big tension we see everywhere today. In a world that's all about data, all about efficiency, are we really teaching minds to think, to feel, to actually be? Or are we just, programming brains to do stuff? And this tension, it's really captured by two totally different ways of looking at learning. So on one side, you've got what's called the neurocentric view. This is the idea that the mind is just the brain, plain and simple. Learning, it's a biological process, like downloading data. The most important thing is efficiency. But then, on the other hand, you have the phenomenological view. This says, whoa, hold on a minute. The mind is so much more than just the brain. Here, learning is a lived, full-body experience. And the whole point isn't just to be efficient, it's to find meaning.
So you see the conflict, right? Brain as a computer versus mind as a lived experience. It feels like you have to pick a side, but what if you don't? What if there's a third way, a philosophy that could actually bridge the ancient and the modern and give us something completely new?
Well, that third way is this radical idea we're talking about today, the pedagogy of emanation, and it completely reframes what we think the purpose of teaching and learning even is. Okay, so here's the absolute core of it. The pedagogy of emanation says knowledge isn't something you pour into a student from the outside, like filling up an empty cup. Nope. Instead, knowledge emanates. It unfolds from within them. Learning, then, is all about reconnecting with this hidden inner source of understanding that you already have. So, to really get our heads around this, we need to break it down. Let's look at the three big philosophical pillars that hold this whole idea up.
All right, pillar number 1, an embodied mind. Now this one directly challenges that idea we mentioned before, that your mind is just the gray stuff happening inside your skull.
This idea comes from phenomenology, which is basically the philosophical study of experience itself. And it argues that we don't just understand the world through pure logic, not at all. We make sense of everything through our lived, embodied interactions with it. Our bodies, our senses, the way we move, these aren't just accessories for the mind. They are absolutely fundamental to how we learn and make meaning out of anything. The philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty put this so beautifully. He said, we shouldn't just focus on a person's head or their feet, but on their body. And what he meant was that our entire being is our anchor to the world. It's the source of our understanding. Learning isn't just in the brain, it happens through the whole body. Okay, let's move on to pillar number 2. This one is all about our values. Our sense of right and wrong. And the idea here is that these are values we can feel. Now, this comes from a philosopher named Max Scheler, and his idea was pretty wild for its time. He claimed that values, things like goodness or justice, aren't just our personal opinions. He said they are objective realities, and we perceive them, get this, through a kind of emotional intuition. He called it sentimental perception. Scheler put it like this: all good willing is founded on the knowledge of the good, and all evil willing rest on moral error and deception. So what does that really mean? It means our feelings aren't just random whims. They can be a real guide to moral truth. Acting ethically isn't just about following a set of rules. It's about correctly perceiving this whole landscape of values. And that brings us to our third and final pillar, knowledge from the source. And for this one, we're going to draw on a really powerful, really ancient idea to explain where knowledge even comes from in the first place. This is the core idea from the ancient philosopher Plotinus and Neoplatonism. He had this vision that all of reality flows or emanates from a single perfect source he called the One. Just imagine light radiating out from the sun, and every layer that flows from it, like intelligence and the soul, is a reflection of that original source. So what does this have to do with education? Well, it means true knowledge isn't something you build from nothing. It's an unfolding of that original source, right from inside the student.
Plotinus's famous last words really nail this down. Strive to raise what is divine in us to what is divine in the universe. So when you look at it this way, education isn't about memorizing facts for a test. It's a journey. It's about reconnecting with that deep inner source of wisdom.
Okay, so we've got an embodied mind, values we can actually feel, and knowledge that comes from an inner source. That's all great, but so what? What does any of this look like in the real world? How do we take this big philosophy and actually apply it?
Well, the very first thing that has to change is the role of the teacher. The teacher is no longer just an information dispenser. Instead, they become a facilitator of emergence. Their whole job is to create the right conditions. This means creating an ethic of presence, a shared space where a student's own mind can really come forth, and this thing called an ontology of availability, which is a fancy way of saying an environment where learning is just possible, where it's invited to happen, so the student's own understanding can unfold.
Let's take a look at how this could work in a really complex field, like, say, prison reform. The old rule-based model, that's all about external compliance. You know, just make sure people learn the laws and follow the rules. But an emanation-based model, that goes way deeper. It's about awakening an internal moral compass. It's about helping someone perceive those objective ethical values for themselves. It's not just about following the rules anymore. It's about a real, genuine, felt transformation.
Okay, this all sounds really profound, doesn't it? Creating spaces for emanation to occur. But how in the world do you actually do that? Well, the answer is surprisingly modern, and it connects all of these deep, ancient ideas to something a lot of us do every single day.
It all comes down to play. The historian Johann Huizinga, in his masterpiece, Homo Ludens, which means man the player, argued that play isn't just some silly thing kids do. He said it's the very foundation of culture, of law, of philosophy itself. He famously wrote, "Philosophy is distilled in the form of a game."
And this idea of play is so fundamental. I mean, think about it. From ancient contests all the way to modern video games, play basically does the same thing. It creates a special, self-contained world. It's a safe space with clear rules where we can practice complicated skills and new ways of being, all without the serious real-world consequences.
And that is what makes games the perfect environment for this kind of emanative learning. They create what Huizinga called a magic circle, a space where the normal rules of life just don't apply for a little while. Inside that circle, you can try things. You can fail, you can experiment, and you can allow your own unique understanding to emerge totally on its own.
So all of this really brings us to a final and pretty provocative question. What if school wasn't about filling minds up with facts and data? What if instead it was all about creating the conditions for minds to emerge? What if the real goal of education was to create a kind of playable space, a space where each student's own unique understanding could finally be born?